damaging client relationships by ditching humans? And if so, what are we going to do about it? Let's get to the bottom of it. Hi, I'm Courtney Baker, and this is AI Know-How from KnownWell, helping you reimagine your business in the AI era. As always, I'm joined by KnownWell CEO David DeWolf, Chief Product Officer Mohan Rao, and Chief Strategy Officer Pete Buehler. We also have a discussion with Krisha Buehler of BELAY about how she's encouraging her team to get hands-on with AI by establishing KPIs around new technology use. But first, the news. Pete Buehler joins us as always to break down some of the latest AI headlines and how they apply to your business. Hey, Pete.
Hey, Courtney. How are you?
Doing good. The first article today comes to us from The Guardian. The headline reads, "Workplace AI, robots and trackers are bad for quality of life, study finds." Pete, help us out with this one.
So imagine that technology originally billed as making our lives better is making us miserable. Feels like we've heard this story once before, but useful to get into the study and understand the specifics. So run by the Institute for the Study of Future Work, a group of 6,000 subjects. And bottom line is the more subjects were exposed to new workplace technologies, they use the examples of wearable trackers, software based on AI and machine learning and robotics, the worse they scored on certain measures of health and well-being. Yet in that same survey population, the more subjects were in the flow of the familiar, so using their laptops, their tablets, and IM communication, the better they scored on those health and well-being measures. So the study doesn't go so far as to empirically derive the causes or the drivers, but the authors had some pretty solid guesses. So unfamiliar technology of any kind runs the chance of making you uneasy in the first place. And technology that's keeping track of you, eliminating from your day what you perceive to be meaningful work, and or replacing some or all of what you do might in fact make you a little more uneasy. It all kind of makes sense to me. And the conclusion I come to is at the end of the day, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the implementation and the change management that's the problem. So takeaway for leaders, get your audience involved from the start. Support them with really well-equipped managers and leaders and HR business partners. Keep them involved throughout. You'll end up with a better product, a readier user population, and a much faster path to the target outcomes of your initiatives. And according to the study, I guess we can say better overall health and well-being as well.
I love that. And you're the perfect person to speak to that. I knew the change management. I was like, it's coming, it's coming. It's a great article highlighting that specifically. So next up, let's unpack a recent Forbes article titled "How Financial Services Firms Can Unleash the Power of Generative AI." Pete, also another one right up your alley. Tell us what your read is on this one.
So a little bit of context. The author's named David Parker. He's co-organizer of Accenture's FinTech Innovation Lab, which is a startup accelerator program backed by the likes of Prudential, JP Morgan, Chase, and BlackRock. Cool data point coming from it, 90% of finalists in the most recent round of application for startup support who qualified are focused on solutions that involve generative AI. Like other industry onlookers, David imagines 2024 is kind of the year we start the transition from experimentation and testing into real implementation on the path to real value creation. So that'll be cool to watch across the course of the year, assuming he's right, which I assume he is. And I find myself to be totally aligned and passionately so around David's take on how to think about the ambition, the scoping of your AI projects. Too many leaders in companies see AI as a technology project or an implementation, a couple of implementations, when instead, I think we know this is a once-in-a-generation occasion. It's an imperative to look across the whole of your business, at your organization, at your operations, at your customer interface, for opportunities to reinvent the business overall.
Pete, thank you as always.
Thank you, Courtney. Love it.
We talked on a previous episode about a CB Insights study that had some alarming stats about the loneliness epidemic and how much time we spend today with devices versus other people. This got me wondering about the impact of AI and whether, for all the talk about it being a force for good, it might actually be a net negative when it comes to client relationships. You know what? I really like you two. We have a great relationship, even though most of the time it is virtual.
I feel like we have it coming for us, Mohan. What's she about to say? She's buttering us up.
There is some hidden agenda here.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to get a little bit of what could be a hot take for this show.
Okay.
And I want to talk about, we have on previous episodes talked about how do we elevate the humanity while we're driving towards this new technology and really implementing AI in all kinds of aspects of our businesses and lives. And I was looking at a report from CB Insights, and it was really angled at at individuals and AI kind of impacting loneliness. And I started to think about that for a second, and I was like, "Ooh, I've got a hot question for Mohan and David. Could AI actually damage client relationships? What would that look like, and how do we keep that from happening?" So there you go, you two. Is AI damaging client relationships?
I'd peel that apart. Let's start with the question of the individuals and the relationships, right? If we look at technology and what it's done, it absolutely has the potential to ruin relationships. Yeah, don't even go to AI. Start with kind of some of the social media that we have. I think everybody can see that two things have happened. Number one, there's this polarization of society because we're reinforcing our own ideals over and over and having less and less like real conversations. The second one is how many times am I talking to somebody? I was just actually talking to a CEO the other day who was saying to me, with the younger generation, he's having to urge them to pick up the phone and make a phone call versus just send a message. I don't know that we know how to socialize and have conversations as much as we used to, right? I see it with my own kids sometimes, right? They'll be sitting a room apart and text each other. I'm not sure that's great for relationships, right? I think there's something about the human connection. You started by saying you like us. I hope that's true. I think that's true. But I think we know that because we're able to see each other. I see your facial expressions. I engage with you. I don't know what the research is. I can't remember the number, but it's something like a 80%, 90% of communication isn't the actual spoken word. It's actually all the other things that surround it. And I think we're missing some of that. And we're missing the tone and the sentiment and all that kind of stuff. When you layer AI on top of that, I think that problem gets even much more complex. Now, I don't think we're at a point where we've started to see that have that impact and it's actually ruining relationships yet. But I do think that there is the potential for that. And if we're not careful, we will see it erode.
I think that's true in the larger societal relationships, right, where people get into their own info bubbles, if you will, and kind of get the feed that they want. And there's going to be more and more of that. So it's true from a societal perspective. But in a business perspective, we're talking about client relationships. I don't think that's the case, right? So because if you think about it, right, there are low value, but the need to be efficient and concise and quick is there. Like a support bot is a good example of that, where it's, the goal here is for efficiency, for conciseness. And I would say that is a good thing that AI can provide that sort of stuff. Whereas when it comes to complex issues, relationships that you need to build, then I think it just is going to free up the human to do even more work as opposed to the mundane work, which is what I was trying to say on the first bucket. So I think in a client context, as long as we're properly applying the technology, I don't think there's a risk of this.
I think that's the key, what you just said. as long as we're properly applying the technology, right? Totally agree with you. There's a lot of rudimentary work. There's a lot of just responsiveness, answering questions, that type of thing that we should be automating. This isn't in a business context yet, so I'll yield that. But just a few weeks ago, there was a huge surge in social media around these new bots, agents that are being used for creating relationships, right? And the surge in the adoption of that was actually scary to me. I think of that dehumanizing, right? If we're actually solving the loneliness problem by hooking people up to computers and saying, have a relationship with bits and bytes, yikes. As long as we don't go down that path in a business setting, right? As long as the relationship that we have with our clients and that personal aspect that does matter isn't replaced, I totally agree with you. It can do a ton of good. And I think we need to make sure it's adopted for those positive reasons, not for the negative ones.
No, I'm playing the optimist today, I guess. Right. So in fact, it's going to liberate the humans even more to do higher value work and be able to provide co-pilots type solutions that'll give the humans even more time and engage more with their clients. Onto you, Courtney. So I'm very optimistic about this in a business context.
Yeah, I love that. So let me flip this question. So I started off with, is AI damaging client relationships? What is the risk there? But if we flip that and look at how does AI become an enabler of human relationships, especially in a business context, let's break down, what is that? What would that look like? What would the guardrails be in place? You've kind of talked about it a little bit, but more specifically, if we flip that question around, what would be your advice?
I think Mohan's on it already, right? There's tons of potential for us to empower human beings, right? To be better friends, comrades, clients, service providers, right? We can absolutely leverage this technology to understand our world better and know how to relate better. I think of just something that we're building at KnownWell as part of our customer intelligence platform is, how do you actually know what the strength of the relationship is between a service provider and a client? Understanding not only the connection points in a many-to-many people relationship, but also the frequency of communication, go deeper, the sentiment, the tone of that communication, so that as a service provider, I can say, oh, I have a hole here, I have a weakness there. I can strengthen that relationship intelligently and know how to approach that relationship in a way that is most meaningful to the other party. That type of thing is only helpful and can elevate us, no doubt about it. And I think we're going to see a lot of advancements in that space.
And even in the context of a product, be able to provide personalization services using AI is going to only enhance David's point even further.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is AI can really help us move from just being able to, steward the relationship at kind of a base level, but actually elevate it where we can actually delight customers and figure out what is most meaningful for them long-term, actually enhancing the relationship.
Absolutely. And I think it's a new level of personalization, Courtney, when you describe that. I think it's not just enhancing that utilitarian service provider client part of the equation. It's also the human relationship. I think it's going to help us connect better if we continue to do what only we can do as human beings, which is to relate, to know, and to be known, right? If we take the lead in that, it can empower us to do that better, right? I can be a better service provider because I can help a person where they're at, regardless of if that's related to my service, because now the AI is going to be servicing the landscape and telling me, helping me be informed and be more intentional in my interactions.
Okay, one last question for you two. Is there some helpful guide rails or boundaries that you think would be advisable for companies to kind of make sure that we're staying, within the realm where we are elevating the relationship and not actually hindering it?
I think you're going to look at your enterprise and see what are the productivity tools that enhance the human in each of us. If you're a software developer, be a better software developer. If you're a content writer, be a better content writer. If you're an accountant, be a better accountant. It's really figuring out those leverage areas in your company and building a toolkit. You can call it Copilot, productivity aids, whatever you want to call it. That would be one way of doing it. And on an external focus, looking at new services that you can offer, new personalization you can offer. These are the ways. You just have to be intentional about how you design your company in this new era.
Yeah, and I'll go philosophical since Mohan went pragmatic. I think it's about the understanding of the human person. I think it is making sure you understand what is uniquely human and really teasing apart the fact that to be in relationship is to know and be known. And unlike those agents that are now trying to solve the loneliness problem without human beings, but with computers, go in the opposite direction. Those are your guardrails, right? Have a conscience and realize, you know what, this may not be good for humanity, and be willing to say no, even if it can make you a lot of money in those things. I think you can absolutely take full advantage economically of AI without crossing those boundaries. And I think you should be true to that. And I think you should base that in an understanding of the human person.
It's really helpful. If you are interested in diving deeper into that specific topic, we have a great episode called What It Means to Be Human in the Age of AI that came out around Christmas time. So make sure that you go check that out. David, Mohan, thank you.
Thanks,
Courtney. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Are you ready to get started with AI, but unsure whether your company is actually ready for a full-scale transformation? If so, first of all, you're probably not alone. But second, we have a really great tool for you. You can go to knownwell.com/assessment and get a personalized diagnostic of where your organization sits today and what they need to do to get ready for the future. Krisha Buehler joined Pete Buehler recently to talk about how her team at BELAY continually experiments with AI tools so they can stay on the cutting edge of customer experience.
Krisha, hi, welcome. So wonderful to have you on the show.
Hello, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
If we could, just to give listeners a bit of context, could we get a little bit of background on BELAY and your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So BELAY is a fractional remote administrative and accounting staffing solution. So basically that means we find quality talent, we fully vet them, and then intentionally match them with our clients based on their needs. We've been around for about 14 years and have been remote the entire time. So, did the remote thing before the remote thing was cool. And as far as my role, I'm the Chief Experience Officer, which means I oversee our talent team, our client relations team, and part of our operations team, just making sure that everyone really is having an exceptional experience at BELAY.
Well, and as you know, this is a podcast whose focus is on AI. And I understand from our prep conversation that you've got your team experimenting right now with AI. Can you talk about some of the work you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So, we get asked quite often because we serve clients who are leveraging executive assistants and bookkeepers, and people from time to time will say, are you worried about, the increase of AI? And we say, no, not at all. We're excited because we view AI as an opportunity to enhance what we're already offering as far as, augmenting those services. So what we're trying to do is really look at different, platforms out there that are helping our assistants leverage AI to be able to be more productive for their clients. So, we're doing that even, in our corporate team with my assistant, challenging her to look at different ways to leverage technology, which is great because it means that I get to then delegate higher level things for her to do, because some of the tasks that were taking her a long time, like meeting notes or research, we're able to augment with the help of AI.
Elsewhere in this podcast, there's a discussion of places where companies have implemented AI to serve customers that has, at the end of the day, damaged rather than enhanced the experience of their customers. Mm-hmm. Do you think really sort of deliberately about that? Do you engage customers in the debate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are very deliberate about that. I mean, one of the things that we feel separates Belay from maybe our competition is the relational aspect of our service. However, with that being said, you really have to meet people where they're at. And so when we talk about personalized service, I think you have to be very discerning on the clients that you are working with. Some of our clients, they don't want to connect all the time. And so they actually are very open to, more automation. But yet there's just as many, if not more, that come to us because they want that human element in their service. And so I think for anybody that is leveraging AI in a service-based business, you really just have to discern and know your client base. And maybe if they're not open to that yet, leverage AI in other capacity, not the relational aspect of the client setting. Do it in, operational manner, if you will, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So rather than think about the different tasks that could be automated with AI for all customers, think about how customers want to be served, want to buy
Absolutely.
from you, and automate accordingly.
Absolutely. It's not a one size fits all anymore, and so that personalized service and really knowing your client and what they are expecting and how they want to communicate is key.
And then you also described a process of, like, at the end of the day, there are some activities that you would rather, as the provider, ultimately be automated than not. And so you're kind of slowly but surely, with a customer who prefers the human contact, building them to a place where they can interact with you in a digital way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is there science to that? Is there these are the 5 steps of getting someone, from point A to point B?
If there is, I don't know it yet.
Okay, fair enough.
I think we're along for the ride for everyone else, right? And trying not to swing the pendulum, but also not trying to get left in the dust, not, jumping on the AI bandwagon. So really trying to balance all of that, to be honest.
The question of KPIs has come up. How you measure whether and how you're getting the target improvements from your initiatives and from the implementations that you're doing. And I understand that you assigned a KPI to the person that you referenced earlier, I think. What was it? How did it go? And what's the lesson for folks who are listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really big with KPIs and OKRs here at Belay. And when we decided that, we need, we want to embrace AI and what that looks like and how we can integrate that into Belay, there's no better way to start that than to do it yourself, right? So, before I go out and promote something, I love to experience it myself. And so when my assistant Abby and I were having this conversation, we just decided, okay, we're going to embrace it. And so one of your KPIs or OKRs for the quarter is going to be to find and research and implement a minimum of 2 new technologies that you can use in your day-to-day to make your job easier. And then if that works, we then can recommend that to our other VAs and our clients and so on and so forth. And 2, right out of the gate, of course, we would meet weekly to get an update, what's working, what's not. And so, 2 right out of the gate are some of the note tracking AI tools. I think, Fathom, Otter, and those are 2 that we've played around with. And you want to talk about something that was time consuming when you are, an assistant and you're having to likely re-watch, or re-listen to a call to make sure you're getting all the points. type all of that out, follow up with all the action items, and to know that you can get something generated that's about 90% accurate and fill in the blanks. I mean, you're taking hours into maybe 30 minutes. So that was a game changer for us. Cool. And then even leveraging ChatGPT, I know that is such a small portion of, what AI is, and that's kind of the one that's the most well known, but the key is knowing how to use it, right? Like how to ask the prompts in a way that gets you the results that you are looking for. And so really playing around with that in order to, from research for like presentations to the biggest one we found is really just taking a big data set of not numbers, but information like results from a survey or whatnot, and really drilling that down into themes and action items. I mean, again, you're talking hours worth of work in seconds, and that has been really game changing for us.
It's super helpful to think about the role that a metric plays in that regard, because kind of everybody's kind of experimenting with kind of everything right now, right? Like, and to what end starts to become the question. And if you put an expectation in place, as you've experienced, like sort of magically in short order, you get concrete answers that drive an outcome, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I think that it's something that they have to have control over, right? Like, notice I didn't say it has to successfully work for us.
Right.
Right. It was, find it, research it, implement it, and then let's decide if it's something that works for us. And so, making sure that it's attainable and that there's not some, false expectation that you're trying to force something to work just because there's some metric tied to it at the end.
Krisha, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate all of your insights and for taking the time to share with us and our audience the cool stuff that you're up to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks as always for listening and watching. Don't forget to leave us a review. It's really helpful in helping our show be seen by more people. So literally, if you could take just a couple of seconds to leave a review, we would greatly appreciate it. At the end of every episode, we like to ask one of our AI friends what they think about the topic at hand. So, hey Gemini, how's it going? Would love to get your take on, is AI hurting client relationships?
AI can be a double-edged sword. It can automate tasks and personalize communication, but poorly implemented AI can feel impersonal and frustrating for clients.
And now you're in the know. Thanks as always for listening or watching over on YouTube. We'll be back next week with more headlines, roundtable discussion, and interviews with AI experts. Hey, if you made it this far in the episode, first of all, thank you. And second, we know that AI is changing all the time, and so we've got you covered. Here is another great episode for you to watch to stay in the loop on what's happening in AI and business. And second of all, we'd love for you to subscribe. You can do that right here. I've always wanted to do that, by the way. So do that now. That would be great.